Most fans don't realize how close the Gwen Stefani-Blake Shelton relationship was to never getting off the ground. In an eye-opening November 2024 interview with People, the former coach of The Voice revealed just how close she was to breaking things off with Shelton before it ever really started. That's right, one of the sweetest love stories was close to never happening at all. "We had just met, and it was chaos," Stefani confessed. "Both of our lives were in complete turmoil, all over the ground. Nothing could save us at that point. There was a point where I was like, I can't even talk to you. This is insane. I already have enough problems. This is not happening anymore. We're not going to text or nothing," she revealed. But luckily for Stefani, Shelton isn't the kind of man to turn his back on love. The country icon was undeterred in his quest to win her heart. "I think he really wanted to impress me because he doesn't really write songs as much as he used to," she explained. "And I love writing songs. That's everything to me. If I want to feel like I have any kind of purpose or any kind of value or anything, it's about writing a song. That's where I get my fulfillment." Shelton began working on Go Ahead and Break My Heart, a duet the couple eventually released in 2016, and that's when Stefani realized he was a man worth going down that relationship road with again. In the whirlwind of modern romance, when internet connections spark as often as in-person chemistry, the love story of Gwen Stefani and Blake Shelton stands out as a tribute to serendipity, vulnerability, and the power of a single text. Blake Shelton and Gwen Stefani are a couple who have been together for some time. Their romance, which flourished under the bright lights of The Voice and developed into one of the most beloved relationships in Hollywood, had a defining moment that had the potential to undermine everything that they had worked so hard to achieve. It was the insane moment when Gwen, who was overcome with uncertainty and worry, came dangerously close to stopping her texting correspondence with Blake by saying, "I can't." What follows is the narrative of that particular event, the feelings that propelled it, and the manner in which it marked a turning point in their incredible journey, a spark that ignites something new. As coaches on The Voice in 2014, Gwen Stefani and Blake Shelton were introduced to one another for the first time. Each of them was going through their own personal storms at the time. Gwen Rossdale, the legendary frontwoman of No Doubt, was shaken up by the news of her divorce from Gavin Rossdale, a marriage that had lasted for 13 years and resulted in the birth of 3 kids, but ultimately ended in sadness. Blake, the king of country music, was going through his own divorce from Miranda Lambert, which was a high-profile split that caused him to doubt his course in life. Their first encounters were professional and friendly, but they did not exhibit any flirtatious behavior, despite the fact that they worked together. After all, they were two individuals who were nursing their wounds and were uncertain about what the future contained for them. On the other hand, something changed in the year 2015. During the time that they were returning to The Voice for another season, their personal lives were in shambles. And with that came the beginning of a silent companionship. They found refuge in each other's laughing and late-night chats, which helped them form a kinship over the similarities in their lives. In a moment of audacity, Blake approached Gwen and inquired about her phone number. This occurred within the time period in question. The next thing that transpired was a string of texts, which were initially speculative, but eventually became more intimate, and which laid the groundwork for their bond. These communications were not merely a form of informal banter. Rather, they were lifelines, a means of navigating the isolation that they experienced in their different worlds. Doubts weighed on the heels. Texting Blake was an experience that was both exhilarating and terrifying for Gwen. In spite of the fact that he was the complete antithesis of her, in many respects, country to her pop, rural Oklahoma to her Orange County roots, he was able to empathize with her suffering in a manner that very few other people could. Their texts were full of humor, vulnerability, and a building sense of trust throughout the entire exchange. As the weeks grew into months, however, Gwen started to feel the weight of her insecurities pressing down on her. She was 46 years old, a mother of 3 children, and had recently gone through a divorce. The concept of falling in love with a new person, particularly someone as prominent as Blake, was intimidating since it felt like walking a tightrope without a safety net. Gwen was sitting alone at her house in Los Angeles late one night when she experienced the insane moment. While she was there, her phone was shining with Blake's most recent message. Although it was a straightforward text message, something lighthearted and endearing, it struck her like a tsunami. Her thoughts began to race. What am I doing? This is ridiculous. Not yet am I prepared for this. He will see the real me, the mess that I am, and then he will flee. Fear led to a state of paralysis. "I can't," was the response that she wrote out, and she hovered her mouse over the send button. It seemed like everything was too enormous and too scary at that particular moment. It wasn't just that she was texting Blake. She was also exposing herself to the possibility of love, which brought with it the possibility of experiencing even more suffering. The struggle within me. Gwen's reluctance was not solely due to Blake's presence. The topic was about her. After going through a divorce, she began to question her value, her desirability, and her capacity to trust relationships once more. After spending years as a rock star, she had the ability to project confidence to millions of people. Nevertheless, when she was alone with her own thoughts, she felt vulnerable. Blake, with his effortless charm and genuine generosity, served as a mirror through which she could see both her hopes and her concerns reflected. What would happen if she allowed him to in, and he let her down? Is it possible that she will let him down? The stakes appeared to be too great. The words, "I can't," were glaring back at her as she continued to keep her finger hovering over the submit button. It would be so simple to put an end to it there, to turn away and seek refuge in the security of solitude. However, she was halted by something. Perhaps the recollection of Blake's chuckle, or the manner in which his emails made her feel noticed, not as a star, but as a woman, was the cause of her feelings. Perhaps she was able to hear a tiny whisper of her own resiliency, the part of her that had endured tragedy and emerged stronger as a result of it. Regardless of what it was, Gwen would not have sent the message. Rather than picking up the phone, she hung up and allowed the time to pass. A crucial moment in time. Gwen awoke the following morning with a lot more clarity in her mind. Upon rereading Blake's note, she came to the realization that her worry, despite being genuine, was not the complete tale. When it came to their relationship, there was something that could not be denied, something that was worth fighting for. She responded to him via text message, providing a response that kept the conversation going rather than just saying, "I can't." Although it was a brief action, it had a significant impact. Gwen made the decision to pursue love, to pursue Blake, and to pursue herself all at the same time. From that point forward, their relationship started to become more profound. The text eventually evolved into phone calls, which led to dates, and in November of 2015, they made their relationship publicly known to the world. What was supposed to be the conclusion turned out to be the beginning. Gwen subsequently referred to the night as insane, since it was a brush with a different destiny, one in which fear triumphed and she let Blake to escape her grasp. Instead, she chose to embrace the unpredictability, and the result was a complete transformation. One of the powers of being vulnerable. Because of its universality, the narrative of Gwen's near miss with Blake is one that connects with people. When you are on the verge of something new, your heart is hammering, and you are unclear whether to leap or retreat. Who hasn't been there? A moment of uncertainty on her part was not a sign of weakness. Rather, it was evidence of her humanity. It is simple to perceive Gwen Stefani as a larger-than-life figure, given her platinum hair and her swagger on the red carpet. But at that precise time, she was nothing more than a woman struggling with the same worries that we all come up against. In addition, Blake was an important contributor. The combination of his tolerance, his sense of humor, and his own willingness to be vulnerable produced an environment in which Gwen was able to work through her uncertainties. The only thing he did was show up, text after text, until she was ready to meet him halfway. He did not exert any pressure or push her in any manner. The story of their relationship serves as a reminder that love is not solely about spectacular gestures or the timing of events. There are times when it is the quiet persistence of a late-night message and the bravery to keep typing that is the most important thing. The love that lasts forever. As of today, Gwen Stefani and Blake Shelton have tied the knot, and their wedding in 2021 will be a celebration of a love that defies expected circumstances. Her children, his ranch, and their music have all been incorporated into their lives, resulting in a partnership that appears to be both improbable and unavoidable. However, it is important to keep in mind that everything rested on a single moment, specifically when Gwen came close to saying, "I can't," but ultimately decided to say something else instead. In addition to being a crisis, that insane moment was also a crucible, which resulted in the formation of a bond that is stronger as a result of having been tried. Despite the fact that the head is screaming for you to quit, this is a story about second chances and trusting your heart. In the case of Gwen and Blake, it is the moment that had the potential to put an end to their love story before it had started, but instead, it provided the basis for everything that occurred after it. When it came down to it, Gwen's decision to continue messaging Blake was not solely motivated by him. It had to do with her faith in the prospect of something better, something that was actually achievable. That, in all likelihood, is the most motivating aspect of the whole thing.